Before I get into today's video, remember to follow me on Twitter. So my Twitter, the link is in the description below. You can also find me. My handle is @JacksonKruger. Come over, say hi, and anyways, back to your regularly scheduled video. All right, let's talk about these Baltimore Ravens. Interesting team. Obviously, heading into free agency, one of the big things you always want to do when you have this great quarterback on a rookie deal is use that to, buy guys in free agency. You have extra cap space, so use that to your advantage and try and, build a contender right now, because it will be a little bit more difficult once the rookie contract is done. So what can they do? Well, first we have to talk about currently just where they're at. So let's talk about how much cap space they have and who they have to re-sign. So here is where they're at. You see at the top of the screen, they have currently $9 million available in cap space, and those are the free agents they still have to potentially sign. The number next to them, that's how much PFF is guessing that they will make in the open market. So how much they will get. So you have Calais Campbell and Justin Houston, obviously two huge names. Now you could argue, well, where are they at this point in their career? That's a fair point to say. Neither one of them are in their primes. There's no denying that. However, they were both still really good. So they're two very valuable pieces. And I think that if they, want to continue to have a good defense, which, in previous years they have, obviously the injuries kind of made things a little more difficult this past year. But, I think you probably want to keep those guys if you can, and $15 million combined for those two is not, that's not too difficult to work around. You can make that happen. You also have center Bradley Bozeman, again, a guy you probably would like to keep if possible. Sammy Watkins, who kind of the story of Sammy Watkins' career is he shows up and makes flashes and then goes away. That's kind of what happened, with his Ravens season. So again, you can keep him, but there's a reason why someone as talented as Watkins only gets $6 million. It's because of, how often is he going to be on the field and really producing, but there are times when he does. You also have someone like Deshaun Elliott, who when he's on the field is playing very good football. So he's someone who, for $5 million for a solid caliber starting safety, I remember when Earl Thomas got kicked off the team and then Elliott stepped in for him, played really well. And so he's someone who you can certainly, you would like to keep. You don't need to keep him necessarily, but if you don't keep him, you have to replace him with somebody. And also, for someone like Josh Bynes, PFF's only guessing he'll make like $1 million, but, I think he's a pretty good veteran player. I would certainly keep him if that's the tag. So if they want to re-sign everybody here, they would need $34 million, meaning they would have to clear $25 million to get under the salary cap. Although, again, one thing I mentioned with all these videos is that it's not exactly that way, because teams spend over the salary cap every year. Most teams spend over the salary cap in terms of actual money every year. Last year, only 2 teams didn't. So the Ravens are the team, there's someone who they can spend over the salary cap, and I wouldn't be shocked if they do. As for players they could cut, Marcus Peters I put on the list. And listen, Marcus Peters is a great player when healthy. He did just miss an entire season due to injury, and he's only 29, so it's not like he's like that old or anything, but he's still, as a 29-year-old corner coming off of a big injury, there's a risk factor there. So I put it on the thing. I'd probably keep him personally. I think cornerback is so important. I hang on to him, but they do have good corners. Maybe they decide to make this move and cut him and save the $10 million, although that's not what I would do. I would say, let's keep him for at least another year, see where he's at. But again, option on the table. Alejandro Villanueva is an option on the table. Now, he got what they paid for last year. He's only going to save $6 million if you get rid of him, and he was a solid starting tackle for them. He wasn't much better than that, but he had his bad moments, but he had some good moments as well, and as a whole was fine. So I don't think he's someone you have to move off of. You also have Tavon Young, who, this is kind of a weird thing where he's another corner who came in and is fine. He's not a star, but he's still relatively young. He'll be 28 next year. Do you maybe, could you see an idea where maybe they get rid of Peters and keep him and try to hope that he can fill that role? Again, it's an option on the table. You could also get rid of him and save the $6 million if you want to. Finally, Jawan James, who's a really good player, and if he can be healthy, and you said he's healthy, this is the steal. you don't even think about trying to save the $3 million to get rid of like a good starting tackle, but are you getting rid of a good starting tackle, or are you getting rid of a guy who's sort of a shell of his former self? That's what remains to be seen. So another option on the table. So you could save some money there. Going over here now, so this is where they ranked in terms of PFF grades for each positional category. We'll go 1 through 1. Only 21st in passing. I always feel like PFF is way too low on Lamar. I would have Lamar higher. That's kind of just my thing. But again, part of this is Lamar didn't play every snap. He was higher than the 21st best quarterback. So obviously, I think he's better than 21st. So that's going to improve. That's what you hope. Offensive line wasn't great. That definitely took a step back. The receiving core did take a step up. I know 20th still isn't great, but they had been dealing with in the past, it's nice to see them have, some success. Rashad Bateman showed some flashes. As I said, Sammy Watkins had some moments there. And Marquise Brown is like a solid receiving option. I don't know if he's a number 1 necessarily, but he's still like a quality player. And the running game was good for the Ravens, so even with having no halfbacks on the field. So again, part of that is what Lamar and Huntley brought to them. And then as for defense, like the front seven was actually fine. They stopped the run pretty well. Pass rush was not great, but that's fine if you have good coverage. They just had horrible coverage, largely because you look at the guys who were playing for them last year. You were at a certain point just having guys who were fringe NFL players, just starting for them because of how many injuries they have. That's gonna come into play. Marlon Humphrey is a superstar. Losing him is gonna make you look worse. Losing Marcus Peters for the entire year, that's gonna make you look worse. And it wasn't even it was just those guys. They were losing backups there as well, which just makes things so difficult. So the hope is that you don't have the injuries that you had last year. Every team gets injured to some degree, but they certainly had worse injury luck than the average team does. So what do you do this offseason? You still need some receiving help. You do. I still am a believer in receivers are the next most important position after quarterback. The numbers back that up. Teams with better receivers that correlates to success more than having a better offensive line, but there's definitely some improvements in the O-line as well that they could take. For the coverage, I think part of it is you could maybe use another guy, but I think that at the same time, you kind of just hope let's just hope that we get healthy. And if the guys that we have on the roster are healthy, we'll go from having one of the worst coverage units in football to one of the best coverage units in football, and that's going to be a huge step. So on one hand, hey, just get healthy and try to maintain who could be going, try to keep those guys on the roster. The other side, though, is that's not so easy to do. Once you get injured in football, you're more likely to get injured again. Some other guys aren't exactly getting any younger. So it's an interesting situation for the Ravens. But yeah, that's kind of why I say, hey, if you can add a receiver, at least that's something you can do and know you can get better, because you're taking a gamble on this coverage. Do you throw another body in the mix just to hope that works out, so that way you have kind of room for error, room for something to go wrong? Or do you say let's keep this the way it is and let's not try to add too much, so that way if everything works out perfectly and we spent all our resources on other positions, now we have this great roster. It's an interesting team. But yeah, that's where I think the Ravens are. Where do you think they are? Let me know in the comments below. What do you think they should do this offseason? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.